That tape was a little long, but I'll keep moving on. The response of the academicians, I can't pronounce that, was electrifying. They embraced holodynamics. One of their most elite academies, the Academy of Natural Science, officially adopted the holodynamic view and organized a special academy. Oh geez, how did I say that? The Academy of Natural Sciences officially adopted the holodynamic view and organized a special... Why can't I say that? I can't say that word. The academic of holodynamics and began to teach special classes in holodynamics perspective. At the time of this writing, the program is still active. In some of these private meetings, I learned that the Russian society is organized in concentric circles. Never heard that word before. At its very center are positioned the academics which are responsible for information. They do the research and find the facts, sponsored by the state. Each academy is held in strict isolation from all other academics, and although research has awarded a blank check for research for over 7 decades, the discoveries have been isolated by the strict secret code that is enforced by penalty of death. Through all its administrative restrictions, academics are considered the most revered of all positions in the community, with the circle of the academics as central to society. God, that word is going to give me a challenge. The next circle of organization is the state of university, which disseminates the information under their tutelage. The public became the most highly literate society in the world. Over 98% of the population can read and write, and people allowed to follow whatever educational channels they choose to, or qualified to participate in. So basically, there is a lot of research, and this is like a global thing, that it's not just in Russia, but this is what the elites do, is they separate their families so that only, there's one that does all of the research, but they keep it separate. So when you go and take one course of study in a university, you're only going to have that tunnel vision in one area, and not know another science that might be relevant to what you know. But so it keeps everything separate, keeps information not together, and the lack of information combined will give you a false picture. That's what's going on with the elites. As long as they don't have all of the information, they're always going to be making the wrong decision. And while they think that they're all elites and they have all of the answers, they don't. They're all separate within their own groups, and only certain levels have information, which is not the information of the whole. But that's why Russia was dysfunctional, but globally we're very, very dysfunctional because of the fragment of information. Surrounding the university and the military, all information, education, and even manufacturing and trade was conducted by the military. Banking, commerce, and construction were military operations. All property was owned by the government and controlled by the military. Communism was a military state. Finally, in the last circle were the people, or the masses. I remember the first time I stepped off the curb in Moscow. I was intent upon reaching a building straight across from where I stood. I waited until a break occurred in the traffic and stepped onto the slush-covered road. A car coming 2 lanes over swerved towards me. It did not slow down, but actually forced me back onto the sidewalk. I was splashed by the slush and was stamping my feet to clear them when my translator said, "Never step into the street." I asked why not, and she explained, "You have no rights there." That is when I first realized that the individual had almost no rights under communist rule. As we walked into the crossing light, I asked her what would have happened if I had not jumped back. She said that I would have been killed. Nothing would have happened to the driver. The people must conform, she said. I began to realize that human rights were at the low end of the totem pole as far as the government priorities were concerned. These four circles of organization were central to the communist society. The academies, universities, military, and masses each function as part of society's system of collectiveness. Unionism, the common interest. In this system of government, the common interest took precedence over individual interests. The common good ruled. The price was high. This is why the Venus Project won't work, is because, and study what communism is. This was an intention to have everything free. It was to constantly look at the needs of society over the corporation. And, like, it had a good intention, but it always looked at the greater good, at the cost of the individual, which won't work, and that's why the Venus Project won't work, is it's constantly looking at the greater good and not looking at the individual. If the individual had a complaint, it had no interest in it. And that's why communism won't work. The Venus Project won't work, because it's the same game. We're basically doing the same game now, where we're always looking globally after the greater good at the cost that a few should die. It's the same thing as cost-effective rules with every corporation. The profit must be made at the cost of human life. It's the same thing. The 7 arenas of alienation. From the Ministry of Social Problems, I learned about the 7 arenas of alienation. We had met for 2 straight weeks in some very intense meetings. For the first 3 days, we discussed the growing complexities of their social problems. Finally, after they had thoroughly investigated my past and my teachings, they confided what they considered to be their most challenging social problem. We have 7 arenas of alienation imposed by the government in the very early stages of the revolution in 1917, they explained. These 7 arenas of alienation are at the root of our problem. They have immobilized our people. The director went on to explain that it has been the official policy of the communist government to alienate people from personal safety. People could be taken away, even in the middle of the night, imprisoned or killed without any form of appeal, or never be heard from again. In this manner, it is reported that Stalin did away with more than 15 million of his own people and reorganized millions of families, separating parents from each other and from their children. 2. Information. Alienation from information meant that most telephones, even in large hotels, do not work. Until 1994, there were no public phone books. The government did not want people communicating with one another. Information belonged to the government. Doesn't that kind of sound like what the Americans are wanting to do? Of what these elites want to do? They want to keep us separate. They are starting to close down the internet. Julian Assange is extremely threatening. Why? Because they're sending out information. Damn the phone. I'll have to start a new tape.